Join us again for It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports? We do. It's NFL Draft Day. And from the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast as we head towards the NFL Draft weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with a black eye. My co-host, John Riley, broadcasting from left field with his opinions as he normally does. And we welcome you to Hacksaw's Headlines, a spectacular day, a great sports weekend ahead of us. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Stores. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects, home, office, studio, backyard. Think DIXIELINE for materials, DIXIELINE for ideas. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido, we will all need help with our eyes somewhere down road when that time comes. Think North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. John Riley, what a cool day we've got ahead of us. First round of the draft. We got the entire draft weekend in front of us. We got the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. We got a lot going on in baseball. We're going a lot of different directions. So tighten your seatbelt because we're going to rock and roll in the next hour or so. How are you? Is this cool or is this cool?
Oh, yeah. This is a great day. It should be like a national holiday, right? I mean, so many sports fans are so fired up to find out what's going to happen later today.
Now, little business here before we roll into the topics on the table. Item 1, when we are done with this podcast, you're taking over the podcast. He created it. It's his fault. He will explain why you should be involved with us. It's called Fans Forum, John.
Yeah, Fans Forum is your chance to be a co-host with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. You got a question or comment about anything in the world of sports, including, most especially, the NFL Draft. Just type it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or on YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
We have exploded. This podcast is rocking and rolling as we reach the 16-month mark. We want you to become part of our team. We started a thing called Hacksaw's Insiders Group where you get on our email list. There's a ton of information that we feed you privately as a member of the club. Go to my website right there, leehacksawhamilton.com. You should be reading it every day, by the way. It's all written, but in the front page, there's an orange box. Fill it out. You will get on our mailing list for all the alerts and all the printed data that we're funneling towards the people. It's called Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We also want you to subscribe. Therefore, you will get the alerts every time we put something up on a YouTube channel. I think we put 8 or 9 things up in the last 48 hours pertaining to the NFL draft. So you will get those alerts every time we do. We want you to share. Tell your friends what we're doing. We're looking for more people to join our team here on our podcast. John, we're going a lot of different directions. Topic 1, I love NFL Draft Day. Back in the day, we used to do a 9-hour NFL Draft Central broadcast on Extra Sports 690 and on the Mighty 1090. We'd do it from the stadium. We'd have the coaches come in, the players come in. Our friend Pat Curran was our insider in the war room. I mean, it was cool radio. Nobody's done what we did. We did it way back in the day. I love Draft Day.
Yeah, I mean, that was like in the late 80s you were doing that, and nobody did that. ESPN barely covered the draft in the 80s.
We did a 9-hour Draft Day. Freaking first round went on forever. Because at that point, it was 15 minutes between picks. It was just, But we had a 4-man group, and we'd bring up people, and other insiders would do newsmaker calls outside to the Chris Mortensons and the John Claytons of the world. It was just really different radio. Of course, we did 9-hour game days on the Charger game day broadcast. Nobody had ever done that. Now everybody tries to do what we did. So, yeah, we're guilty. We invented it. A lot of questions. Go ahead, pick something, and let's get started.
Okay. Well, you're wearing the Chargers hoodie, so let's start there.
Let's talk about the Chargers. This is where we are at this hour, just hours before the draft. You may hate Dean Spanos. Just sign the memo here. We all like Justin Herbert. You have heard me on this podcast say, I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0. That's why I'm wearing this. I hope Dean Spanos goes 0-17 for what he did to the city of San Diego and the loyalty of Charger fans. That being said, this is a great day because the Chargers are sitting the aftermath of a crap 5-12 season. They're sitting there with the 5th pick in the draft, and they got trade offers for that draft pick. And if they don't trade the pick, they got an opportunity to do a lot of things. All right, let's talk about where they are. Trade offers. This is the rumor that's out there that there could be a 3-way deal involving the Chargers, the Cardinals, and the Minnesota Vikings. Follow me if you can. Arizona would trade the 4th pick to the Chargers. Arizona would wind up drafting 5. The Bolts would go to 4. Chargers would also get a 4th-round pick as part of this transaction. So the Chargers, if this happens, would be sitting there with the 4th pick. Chargers would take the 4th pick. They would then send it to Minnesota for the 11th, the 23rd, and a 3rd-round pick. So the Chargers would get 11 and 23. They'd get a 3 and a 4 in future drafts. The way this would work is the Vikings would get access to probably J.J. McCarthy if they got to the 4 pick that the Chargers had just obtained. Arizona would be dropping down to 5. They'd get the receiver, Marvin Harrison. The Chargers, then going 11 and 23, would get a chance to get one of the top wide receivers or one of the top offensive tackles. Plus, they would have picked up a 3rd and 4th round pick on top of it. So they get 2 1s, a 3, and a 4 as part of the deal. That's one rumor out there. Arizona's talking to supposedly 4 different clubs at this hour. We think if the trade's going to be made, it's going to be made in the 5 o'clock hour as these picks are coming up. So, John, I'm going to go proposal by proposal. You're going to give me a reaction. So you got Chargers, Cardinals, Vikings. Do you like the structure of the deal where Arizona drops, Bolts go up, Bolts trade back to Minnesota. Minnesota winds up with 4th pick, Arizona 5, Chargers 11 and 23. Makes sense, or is it too far back to go?
No, I love that because, when everyone wants the quarterbacks, there's huge demand for that number 4 and number 5 pick. So play the market, max out. You can get as many assets as you can.
Okay, second trade proposal. This is just kind of filtered out in about the last 48 hours. The Giants are trying to trade up to get a quarterback. And the report is the Giants are willing to deal number 6 and a 4th round pick to get to number 5 if the right quarterback, we think it's J.J. McCarthy, is still on the board. So the Chargers would only drop from 4 down to 6. They could still get marquee player. They'd pick up a pick later on the weekend. Like, dislike.
Well, for the Chargers, it makes sense, but didn't the Giants just sign Daniel Jones to a long contract?
And Daniel Jones has gotten the daylights beaten out of him, and he's had neck injuries and calf injuries and Achilles injuries, and they just don't have a good team around him, and they're on the hook for a phenomenal amount of money. But there is just an underlying theory that they don't think he's an established NFL quarterback because he keeps getting hurt and he keeps getting sacked because they got a bad team around him. So I don't know that I really like giant leadership, giant decision maker. So it's been tough on him.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Okay, next one, and this one I find hard to believe, but it's being reported in both Las Vegas and in Denver that the Broncos have approached the Chargers. Now, the Broncos are talking to a ton of people. The Broncos have approached the Chargers, offering their 12th pick and next year's number 1, 12 this year, a 1st-round pick next year, to jump into the Chargers slot at number 5. Chargers, I was told, rejected it. Chargers came back with a counteroffer. Denver, you give us that 12, and you give us your former Pro Bowl cornerback Patrick Surtain, and we'll give you 5. If that's the deal, would you rather have 1 this year, 1 next year, or would you rather have 1 this year, you'd be dropping down, plus Surtain? If you're the Chargers, what would you do?
I would take 1 this year and Surtain on that deal because the Chargers defense was always getting torched last year. They need help.
Now, Surtain's on the final year of his contract because then you got impending free agency, or you're going to pay him $20 million a year because that seems to be the going rate for cornerbacks. Does that come into the equation or not?
Well, it probably does. I'm sure the draft gurus, the salary cap gurus are figuring that out.
Raiders. It's been reported 2 days in a row. The Raiders have evidently offered the 13 this year and next year's number 1 for the number 5 if the right quarterback is available. That's much like the Denver situation. Do you want a 1 this year or 1 next year? You give up a 5? Or is that too far down to drop to go from 5 down to 13?
Well, now you're proposing trades interdivision. I thought you didn't want to trade with the enemy.
Well, that was the next point is, do you want to dare deal with the damn enemy and make them better? Or if the price is so good that you're getting 2 number ones, yeah, I'll take the 2 number ones from the enemy because he's not going to be able to get better.
Well, I'll say this, just as an NFL fan and a former Raider fan back in the day, I want the Raiders to be relevant again. So if the Raiders get a QB, I'm excited about that. But as far as the Chargers go, just build assets, stack up the body count.
Okay. If the Bolts stay at number 5, as all the big names have been compressed, I think they either take Joe Alt, the big tackle Notre Dame, or if they stay at 5, and if there's a run on quarterbacks, take Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Those guys are far and above better than the next group of tackles or the other wide receivers that are on the board. Now, if they trade down and say they drop to 6, or say they drop and take the Denver pick or even the Raider pick, they get access to Brock Bowers, the tight end, Onu Fashanu, the offensive tackle, Penn State, Rome Oduzie, wide receiver, Washington, Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas, and they do need a defensive tackle. That's if they trade down. If they keep their 2nd and 3rd round picks, I'm led to believe defensive tackle Chris Jenkins, running back Blake Corum in the 2nd and 3rd round, maybe in the 4th round, Mike Sinistri, the cornerback. Michigan men, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, if they stand pat and they don't move those other picks once they get beyond round 1. So you trade. What do you do if you stay at 5?
Oh, I would never use a 5 for a wide receiver. That's too darn high. If I'm 5, I'll go for one of those anchor offensive linemen. That's what I would do. But most likely I would trade out of 5. That's, I think, in the Chargers' best interest.
You're just bleeping greedy. You just
yes, this is when you get leverage in these deals and you can make these trades work for you. This could change the franchise's trajectory.
Okay, it's NFL draft day. We have fans forum. The chat box is open. You're a football fan, jump in line now. Get into the chat box so you can tell us what you would do if you were the general manager of these guys. And I don't care whether you like or dislike the club, whether you hate the owner, love the quarterback, if you've given up on the thing. Fans forum is open right now for Charger fan, Bronco fan, Raider Nation out of jail on bail. You're allowed to join us in the chat box right now, fans forum. So get in line so we can get to your questions at the end of the podcast. That's topic 1 on the table. John, you take over next topic.
Okay, more trade rumors. This is what's going on all across the league.
Okay, what we're hearing, there have been a volume of offers made to the number 2 pick owned by Washington, the number 3 pick owned by New England, the number 4 pick owned by Arizona, and then the New York Jets, who are sitting back there at number 10, trying to get up, but also possibly moving back. I was told Washington has rejected the Raiders' offer. The Raiders' offer from Tom Telesco, the decision-maker general manager, who suddenly flipped and said, yeah, we'll be aggressive. That's far from his conservative nature in San Diego and with the Bolts in L.A. Raiders evidently offered this year's 1, this year's 2, next year's 1, if they could get access to Jaden Daniels. Washington, I was told, rejected 2 1s and a 2, and they're going to keep the pick, and evidently they're going to take Jaden Daniels, even though Daniels has been dropping hints. I don't want to play for those guys. So that's one rumor. New England at 3, desperately need a quarterback. The owner has said, we desperately need a quarterback. Go get me a quarterback at number 3. They're talking to the Giants about dropping back from 3 just back to 6. Now, that's weird because the Giants like Drake May. New England likes Drake May. Why would you trade out, go from 3 to 6, even if you pick up additional assets, when you desperately need a quarterback? At 6, you're not going to get a quarterback. So that rumor is out there. Then you got Arizona. They need help everywhere, especially wide receiver to work with Kyler Murray. They're torn about Marvin Harrison, do everything star Ohio State. They're torn about Malik Neighbors because you can't teach 4.23 speed, the kid from LSU. But it was also torn by, that's one player. If we stay at 4, we take one player. If we drop back, take this whole package via Minnesota or through the Chargers, we might wind up with 11 and 23, and you could go get 2 quality players. So Arizona's out there trying to figure out who they should be. And then there's the Jets. with Aaron Rodgers. And I got to believe that this quarterback, although he's played, 4 plays before he ruptured his Achilles,
That's right.
I think this quarterback's got input as to what's going on with Robert Saleh, the coach, and with the general manager. Report is the Jets are trying to trade up from number 10 to get as high as number 5, a.k.a. either Marvin Harrison or neighbors from LSU, to go get Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver. There's also talk, though, maybe they trade back. And maybe they trade back and they just take Brock Bowers, the star tight end from Georgia. There's another wild rumor out there. The Jets are calling the Broncos just behind them and the Raiders just behind the Broncos and say, would you like number 10? We'll give you access to get Michael Penix. That rumor is out there. But the burning question, how far back do the Jets want to go? And can the Jets extract a pound of flesh from the Broncos and the Raiders to let those guys fight as to who's going to take Michael Penix by moving up? So those are the 4 teams that are involved in all this trade talk. My gut feel, I got so many bloody emails in here, I can't get through them. There's so much stuff from these guys that I network with. Washington keeps the pick. I think Washington takes the LSU quarterback. I can't see New England trading back. If Drake May's a stud, then Drake May should be their pick. Arizona's got a lot of problems, but boy, Marvin Harrison, that's stud wide receiver, and they don't have stud wide receivers for Kyler Murray to throw to. And the Jets are the wild card because they could go up, they could go down, they could impact a bunch of other teams. And John Riley says,
well, I say the Jets and the Broncos have history of trading, right? They just made that recent deal. I agree with the Commanders. That deal from the Raiders is not enough. I mean, they've got to really hold out for just a monster package, or otherwise just do the safe thing and take a franchise quarterback like Jaden Daniels. That's what the Commanders should do. Arizona needs to definitely trade back and just get more players. I mean, because they're a disaster, that franchise.
Starting with the owner, Michael Bidwell.
Yeah, exactly. So one player is not going to do it. And certainly you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket of a wide receiver. I mean, that to me makes no sense at all, especially with Kyler Murray being injured so much. So I don't know if New England, unless they get overwhelmed, take one of the quarterbacks. That makes sense. Arizona needs to trade back. Chargers should trade back.
Okay, so those are the trade rumors at this hour. If you're an NFL football fan, jump into Fans Forum. Which of those proposed deals that we have discussed do you think makes the most sense? John, let's go to the third topic on the table on NFL Draft Day.
The LA Rams are finally loaded with number 1 picks this year. Lee.
Yeah, they went through a whole series of years where they did not have a number 1 because they built a Super Bowl team and they traded future number 1s, the Jalen Ramsey deals of the world, etc. But they got 11 picks, and now, granted, none of them are in the upper echelon. They're not inside the top 10. But everything I gather is they're going to choose defense. And there are a load of edge pass rushers, defensive ends, and building block defensive tackles. I think as they sit there, I think they're going to take Jared Verse of Florida State or Latu, the UCLA pass rusher, who's exceptional. They just brought in Chop Robinson, the wide pass rusher from Penn State. And they look closely at Byron Murphy for a massive defensive tackle. And, of course, they have to replace the retiring Aaron Donald. So the Rams are in just great shape. And the Rams, it's the other interesting aspect. The Rams are really backloaded. And we're going to show you a chart in a minute with that. But the Rams are backloaded where they could stockpile 3rd-round picks and 4th-round picks because they got multiples, and then jump into the 2nd round and get another 2nd-rounder. You're not going to trade 3rd and 4th and get another number 1. So keep an eye on the Rams. They do things really differently. I don't think Les Snead, the general manager, is wearing a T-shirt today. It says F those draft picks because he's got 11 draft picks.
Yeah.
Now, they may be active once they get beyond the 1st round because they got so much they could use to put into a bowl and say, John, here it is. Give me a 2nd-round pick for here it is. Go ahead. Your response on the Rams.
Wasn't just a few years back, we thought Sean McVay was going to be done in LA, and he decided to stick around, and his team, the cupboard was bare. Maybe he saw the future. Maybe he probably saw these draft picks coming, in the next few years, and that he could rebuild this thing.
And the other thing is they rebuilt their offensive line last year. I mean, they've got all young people, and they pretty much stayed on the field, and they kept Matthew Stafford upright. So they've gone through transition. So I think they're halfway up the hill in rallying this thing back. Now, losing Aaron Donald is a bit of a blow, but he decided after an illustrious career to walk away, and I think they had a sentiment that he was going to retire. They got all these assets to go get more good young players, and they drafted really well a year ago. If you're a Rams fan, join us. Fans Forum. I'm not begging. I'm just telling you, you got a comment to make. We want everybody watching us. Look at the number of people on our live stream already. My goodness,
Yeah.
We've busted 200 at this minute. Join us on the Fans Forum. If you're a Rams fan, give us an opinion. Okay, let's take an overview of the entire draft, John. Next question.
Okay, here we go. This breaks down all the picks. Look at those numbers for those teams.
Okay, the Bears are drafting 1 and 9. Of course, they got the number 1 from Carolina last year when Carolina took the quarterback Bryce Young from Alabama. So the Bears are drafting 1 and 9, and the Bears made the trade. They get the Chargers' great veteran wide receiver. The Bears last year got DJ Moore. They're going to get Caleb Williams. My goodness, they're 3 deep at running back. Suddenly, they got a lot of people around that kid quarterback. Minnesota is at 11 and 23, and they desperately need a quarterback. The aftermath of what happened with Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons as a free agent and a money grab. Arizona's got a ton of draft picks. They have 6 of the top 90 picks in the NFL draft. So they're going to be active, and maybe they use some of those extra picks to trade up. Washington, as bad as they've been, they got 6 of the top 100. Now, specifics, the Chargers, 5, 37, and 69. Those are pretty good selections. Of course, according to John, he's going to trade everything and back in the load. Raiders are at 13, 44, and 47. I just don't think there's any way the Raiders can trade up. And the Rams, with the 11 picks, the Rams have 4 of the top 99 picks in the draft. So which of all that impresses you the most?
Wow. I mean, it's a lot in there, but I'd say it's got to be that Rams, all the picks that are on that list. But, when there's 32 teams in the league, you kind of can do the math, and you can see how some of these guys have proportionately much more to pick from than a lot of other teams.
Well, it's the year of the quarterback in the draft. It's a year of the wide receiver in the draft. I cannot remember in recent times how many offensive tackles, guards were going to be in the first round. So once you get beyond those 3 layers, there's still a lot of really good players. The back 15 of the first round, whole bunch of players you'll say can play in the second round. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement. I mean, there's a rumor out there as of this morning that 8 of the top 15 picks could be traded. Now, that's if somebody goes crazy. And historically, John, if somebody does something strange at the top of the first round, it's like a domino. They all start to fall, and then suddenly everybody jumps in and starts to do something because of what happened above them. So this 5 o'clock tonight is going to be fascinating in the first round, the only round of the draft. Hey, we get to halftime. Our podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores in San Diego to serve you. This guy is always busy. This guy is building out his man cave. This guy is putting closets in the bedroom. This guy has renovated his bathroom. This dude fixed his whole kitchen. It looks like it's 2025 Star Wars. And he did it not because he's a bright light. He did it with the help of our friends at DIXIELINE.
Yeah, actually, in our previous home, we had DIXIELINE come out and we remodeled our whole kitchen, and it was unbelievable. It's one of those, when you have those refrigerators that have the wood paneling on it, and it looks like it blends into with all the cabinets. It was so sweet, but we ended up moving out of that house 2 years later. But DIXIELINE can really help you out building the kitchen.
If you have projects, you need to talk to these people. Podcast is also brought to you by the North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. These people have been in business since the 1970s serving you. We all need help with our eyes, whether it's just a typical vision test, new glasses, new contact lenses, or whether you got something much more significant, glaucoma, cataracts, an eye infection, pink eye. If you need help with your eyes today, or a year from today, or down road from today, I just want you to remember these people, because these are the professionals that we deal with. North County Eye Center, Poway, Escondido. We go to the second half of our NFL Draft pregame show podcast on a Thursday, going towards this great sports weekend. Ton of different topics on the table. If you're new to our live stream and what we're doing, we do this Mondays at 1 p.m., the bonus podcast. We do it Thursdays, are regularly scheduled. At the end of the podcast, we do something different. Nobody else is doing what the hell we're doing. We do what he created, Fans Forum. If you're new, if you're a sports fan, like or dislike this host, like or dislike this format, we don't give a damn. We want you involved in Fans Forum. John, explain to all the newbies how they can be part of our podcast.
Yeah, so the newbies, if you want to get involved, just type in your comment in Facebook X or Facebook X or YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum. And look at all these names: Sean and Willie and Kay and Hugh, and it just goes on and on. We're to try to get everybody involved.
Now, don't send us 26 things in the chat box. Just pick one topic, give us a good take, and then we'll be able to tell you that you're right or you're wrong. Fans Forum. And by the way, you like sports, you need to check my website. I write on the website every day, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, right there at the top of the screen. And when you go to my homepage, there's a big orange box on the right-hand side. That's Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to join our team. Just fill out the information. You'll get the alerts. You'll get all the extra material that we send out vis-a-vis email that is on the Insiders Group. So fill out that box. I think you'll really enjoy it. Subscribe, share, tell everybody what the hell we're doing with this Monday and Thursday podcast, what I do on my website. Agree or disagree, does not matter. And by the way, since we don't have a lot of friends, give us a thumbs up or give us a 5-star rating, because that really helps us. It really makes us pertinent. And yes, we are bleeping brilliant at what we're doing. Okay, John, let's go to other topics on the table, and you need to tighten your seatbelt.
Pick up the phone, pick a topic. Here we go. USC, Reggie Bush in the news.
Reggie Bush in the news, the story that broke. The Maxwell Club, the Heisman Trust, returned his Heisman Trophy to Reggie Bush yesterday. Reggie Bush, let me quote you some history here, okay? San Diego native, greatest running back in the history of USC Trojan football, not encompasses Charles White, O.J. Simpson, etc. What he did in a short order span was unbelievable. In 2004, he had nearly 3,000 all-purpose yards in one season, 8.7 yards every time he touched the ball. He scored 42 touchdowns in his career. He triggered USC to the national championship. I think the greatest running back in the history of San Diego high school football. And that says a hell of a lot when you consider that Marcus Allen was here, as were so many other great running backs over different decades. That's history of Reggie Bush. I got a historical question. Heisman Trust, should they have stripped him of the Heisman Trophy in the aftermath of the NCAA investigation to put USC on probation? I raise that question because there have been other Heisman Trophy winners who went afoul of the law. Obviously, the most famous, O.J. Simpson, the armed robbery prison situation, the death of his wife, Nicole Brown. They didn't ask for the Heisman Trophy back. In fact, O.J. wound up selling it to pay off his debts. Johnny Rodgers, legendary wide receiver, running back, Nebraska. Guns, armed robbery. He went in the slammer. They didn't ask for his Heisman back. So the burning question, should the Heisman Trust have taken his trophy back based on what happened to him when he was done at USC? Another piece of history. Let's be honest here. Let's have a little dose of reality. While everybody's doing a victory lap about Reggie got his trophy back, let's be realistic here. He broke the NCAA rules in 2004. He and his family were given $300,000 cash illegal benefits and a free home to live in plus cars. Now, they stood up and Reggie said, hey, NIL rules in 2024. It's a different era. Everybody's being paid volumes of money. I shouldn't be penalized for taking volumes of money. That's the difference. Back in 2004, the rules were the rules. And those rules encompassed every student athlete, whether it was at USC or it was at Michigan or the University of New Hampshire or Florida State or Georgia Southern, whomever. He broke the rules. I'm sorry, you can't take the 2024 rules and invert them back and say, I'm innocent. I deserve this in 2004. Those were not the structure of the rules. Another thing, USC was devastated. 2 years of probation, stripped of 30 scholarships. They never recovered. They had to erase all their victories in the Reggie Bush era with Matt Leinart, took away, stripped the record book of all of his records, took his jersey down, mailed that trophy back to us. That was the aftermath. And then there's the history that nobody talks about. As the NCAA was doing its investigation from 2005 through 2010, he never cooperated with the NCAA. His family never cooperated with the NCAA. He never apologized to USD for what he and his family did to the Trojans football program. I think that weighs in this equation about who he was at that point in time. Everybody's giving him a pat on the back. Oh, this is deserved return of your trophy, as if nothing ever bleeping happened. Football has welcomed him back, not paying any attention to the disgrace he brought and the disrespect he brought to the program by what he did and how he acted after they were sanctioned. And USC's AD called him resilient for bouncing back through this. Wait a minute. A football player is resilient if he recovers from a catastrophic knee injury or shoulder injury or a broken neck. He's not resilient because he got his trophy back. You know, I'm going to say something here that's going to offend a lot of people. This is what I truly believe. I respect Reggie Bush a great deal as a player. Like I said, I think he's the greatest of all time at Southern Cal. He's the greatest ever in San Diego. And that school, this city, has had great running backs. High school football has been so successful here, and college football there been so successful. I respect him as a player, but he showed no remorse at all, as if nothing ever happened, that he was entitled to all this. I'm sorry. That's not what a hero is in 2024 as I view it. I respect him as a player. I can't buy the theory I should respect him as a person. That's my opinion on the Reggie Bush, the Heisman Trophy situation. John Riley's out in left field. I'm going to hold on to the table. Let's see what he's got to say.
Well, if you're going to disrespect him, we should do that for dating Kim Kardashian. But this is justice that he's getting his trophy back. This is a good thing. Now, did he break the law, or not the law, NCAA rules? And you were bringing up guys with guns and stuff. I mean, that's the law. That's different. But with the NCAA rules, did he break the rules? Yeah, he did. Okay. But the rules are different now. And granted, even in 2004, there was still a lot of funny business going on that it wasn't policed. But now that it's legal, now there's hypocrisy all over the place. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say someone is thrown in prison and it's for, let's just say, possession of marijuana. But then later on, California makes marijuana legal. Does that guy deserve to come out of jail, or is he stuck there because he violated the law when that was the law?
Okay, so he was incarcerated. Now he's released because the rules are different. He paid a price.
Right.
Please tell me that Reggie Bush paid any price at all for all he did to his alma mater. John, you can't walk away and say there was no damage done. I'm sorry. Reggie Bush's action with he and his family, that money, all those free gifts, that destroyed the Trojan program. They have never recovered from 2005.
Well, I think you're proving that the rules back then made no sense.
But the rules were there in place for everybody.
Right. But
from
was
New
he
Hampshire
selectively
to New Mexico.
picked out, though? They're selectively choosing how to enforce the rules.
No, they folded the SMU football program because they were a bunch of outlaws in the Eric Dickerson, Craig James era.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to retrofit that back and say that should have never happened either?
Well,
the rules were the rules then and time.
Yeah, but the rules were wrong, in my opinion. I think what they're doing now with NIL is a great thing for the player because they're getting the value that they legitimately deserve based on the market conditions.
Fans Forum. Are you going to join us and represent what I say? I respect the player, don't respect him as a person. Or are you just going to side with this guy as the rules change, everything is fine? Fans Forum, jump into the chat box. Your opinion on Reggie Bush. Want to hear what you've got to say. We go from that to not a good week here, Montezuma Mesa, San Diego State.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this news breaking about Lamont Butler and the football's got a lot of action too.
Lamont Butler has decided to leave San Diego State. Great young man, 4 really solid years. I hate to see it portrayed the way it's being portrayed. He's going into the transfer portal to find another place to play his final year, and he's going into the transfer portal, basketball in one hand, and hand out, give me lots of money.
Yeah.
That's what his father has indicated, payday time. The kid made $200,000 last year through the NIL portal at San Diego State. He made 5 times more than the star center, Jaden Ledee. That's kind of hard to believe. He's seeking a payday of $400,000. This is a kid hit the biggest shot in the history of San Diego State and now wants to turn his back on the program. And this is a kid that averaged 8 points and 2 rebounds a game last year. He thinks he's worth $400,000. I'm sorry. This is a little too far-fetched. And I like that kid, and that kid's made himself a really fine player. I think the kid should have come back like the Jaden Ledee rules, come back and played one more year and maybe position himself back into the NBA draft. I'm just a little bit bothered by this. No, I'm not. This is such a turnoff to me. This is unbelievable that all these kids are getting all this kind of gross money as if they're the next coming of the next star in the NBA, and they're bloody not. So that's the basketball end of the equation. Down the hallway, I don't understand this. I don't accept this. I think this is terribly unfair. 12 more Aztec players entered the transfer portal in a 24-hour window after they played their spring football game on Saturday. And the latest to jump ship is their top recruit running back, Anthony McClellan, incoming freshman, who enrolled early in December, and he spent 3 months there, and now he's going to transfer out. They also lost Martin Blake, who had been scholarship. He was an all-purpose backup fullback. They made him a third-down specialist. He's gone. They lost a big defensive tackle, Brandon McElroy, who just transferred from Marshall, played a little bit in the spring game. He's gone. Chris Fewell, who had played a lot as a linebacker, has defected. And 3 other young offensive linemen who had just been recruited, they're opting out. 36 players, John, have exited the program since Sean Lewis was hired as head coach. I don't understand the common sense in all this. Everybody thinks they can go somewhere else. You know, there were 24 initially who opted out. There's 12 of them who opted out in December, still have not signed anywhere. And now you got 12 more. Now it's 36 in the transfer portal. I've lost all my friends over there, I'm sure, at San Diego State. So your response on Lamont Butler and the whole atmosphere of the NIL and your response on 36 guys leaving before they ever play a game for Sean Lewis. Yeah, I think it devastates the program.
It's a rough week, isn't it, for San Diego State? Well, first of all, I am so happy for Lamont Butler. I mean, what he brought to this city and the enthusiasm for Aztec basketball, I don't care where he goes in his next year for college ball, he will still always be beloved in San Diego.
Okay.
How can you shame a person for seeking opportunity? Keyshawn Johnson went to Arizona. He made allegedly $400,000. I still love Keyshawn Johnson. He's still a great guy. He got a little bit of hate from Aztec fans, sure, but if he wasn't going to another college program, he would otherwise be trying to play pro ball, whether it's in the NBA or Europe or elsewhere. That's a payday too. He has his hand out because he offers value in return for that. So people pay money to see him play basketball. He deserves to put his hand out and demand what he believes his value is. So I'm happy for Lamont Butler. In fact, I think, according to his father, there were huge offers last year, and they chose to stay to kind of sacrifice for the common good and for the good of San Diego. But they're leaving money on the table. And, you know, this is a family that's probably doesn't have tremendous means. Why would I shame them for that? So good on you, Lamont. We don't know where he's going to land. I mean, there's a slight chance he could come back, but most likely he's going to go somewhere. We'll see how he does. He's betting on himself, and that's a good thing. And then meanwhile, Dutcher's just going to reload, and you got another scholarship, and, you know, there's going to be new guys come forward. As far as football goes, similar deal, right? These guys are all just chasing opportunity. They probably are at that Aztec fast game, and they probably thought, oh, wow, this sucks. I'm like buried in the depth chart. I'm not getting any playing time. I'm leaving, you know, or this isn't what I signed up for. Things were different. But a lot of those guys, they're fringe players in the first place. And then when they go into the transfer portal, to your point, there's no one there that wants to gobble them up. So, you know, it just might be the end of the line for some of these players.
They're chasing a $10 bill. It's ridiculous. Stay here, earn your chance to play. A bunch of these guys have 3 and 4 years left. Who's to say they're not going to be a starter by midseason or next year? I'm sorry.
Well, if you're on the Aztecs and you see yourself, you're like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart on whatever position you play. And meanwhile, there's a school somewhere else to say, hey, man, we'll give you money, and that could be any amount, but hey, you're going to start here. Okay. And you're not going to start at San Diego State. And meanwhile, it might even be a better academic institution. Why would a player say no to that? I mean, everyone's trying to find the best opportunity for themselves. I mean, it's a lot of players moving in and out. I mean, because of the NIL and the transfer portal is pretty wild west, but everyone's seeking best opportunity for themselves. And you can never really shame anyone for that.
Page 212 of Webster Merriam Dictionary has the word loyalty. Oh, that's right. You took the pen and crossed it out.
Loyalty is a two-way street, my friend. Okay. And every year is a new year, and every year is a new team.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
I don't want to argue with you. I like you, but Fans Forum, are there any Aztec fans out there that are participating in this? Want you to jump on board. Are you bothered by what Butler has decided to do? Are you disappointed, disgusted with what's now happened to the football program? This is going to be miserable that Sean Lewis suddenly has to go find more players. He's got 36 in the transfer portal now. Jump on board. Want you to be part in the chat box, Fans Forum. Okay, we go on from football. John, we got hoops to talk about.
Hoops, yeah, the playoffs are pretty red hot right now. Well, I guess we're talking a little Lakers, huh? How are they doing?
Oh, boy, it's controversy. They're not doing well. Lakers blew a 10-point lead in game 1 up in Denver, blew a 21-point lead in game 2, and now there is some inner turmoil. They're down 2-0. There's been no consistency in starters 3, 4, or 5. There's not been a lot of help for King James and AD. It's a big issue. They've been outscored in the second half of the 2 playoff games, Sean, 114-83. They're allowing Denver to shoot 59% from the floor in the second half of the 2 playoff games that they've lost the lead. There's no consistency from Reeves. Rui Hachimura's running hot and cold. They're inside the head of D'Angelo Russell. As good as he was early, he's not playing well now. And this is a repeat of what we saw last spring in the NBA Western Finals. And then there's Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis sounded off yesterday. And in essence, it was a critique of Darvin Ham, the coach, saying our substitute patterns just aren't working. We got guys on the floor in combinations that just are not running the offense or playing at the other end defensively the way it needs to be played. And that's why we've given up 114 points in the second half of the last 2 games. And suddenly AD is not happy. LeBron's only comment is, the only thing I'm focused on is game 3. Yeah, but you need to see why you got to 0-2 in the series because the people around you aren't playing real well. So this is not a good environment as they get ready to roll out here to play the 3rd game against Denver. Can they win? Sure. But they did not win in Denver. They're going to have to win in Denver. And, they're going to reel off 3 straight wins against the Nuggets, the championship Nuggets. Wow. Go ahead, John.
This is such a bad look for AD. I mean, throwing Ham under the bus. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, he should be trying to find a way to bring his team together and have some positive energy. This is negative karma. But how about AD being angry that he wasn't considered for Defensive Player of the Year, and then Jamal Murray hit that last second shot over AD, and that was just sort of an in-your-face kind of thing. The Lakers friggin' collapsed. They blew it. They choked. And yeah, they're up against the wall, but it seems like they can beat other teams, but not Denver.
Denver has now beaten them 10 straight. And Denver's streaky. Denver at times looks so lethargic on offense, looks poor on defense. And then all of a sudden, you got Jamal Murray just going crazy. I think he was 3 for 16 in the first half, and he was 6 of 8 in the second half, including 3 threes. And then Jokic, who looks like he's gassed in the first half, comes back. It's like somebody lit a fire underneath him. And they have stretches where their guards are burying threes and stretches in which their guards look like old men and incompetent. But Denver's been able to put it together at the right time. You come from 21 back in the NBA, it's a hell of an accomplishment. Now, granted, it was in high altitude there. So LeBron says, my own focus is going to be on game 3. I don't care about the rest of the rhetoric out there. So if the Lakers don't get out of this first round, What's your take on the team? Is it just continue to be who they are, mismatched inability to come together and play?
It's just when you think Pelinka figures it out, it all goes to hell again, doesn't it? So I don't know. I don't see the Lakers getting beyond this series. I mean, what do you think about the other teams in the NBA? I mean, Miami had that big upset over Boston.
How's that? Well, they hit 23 threes. They were just heaving and hoping they go in and hit 23 threes and won. But I wouldn't be surprised Boston comes back and beats them by 25. Miami's down 2 guards doing this, without Jimmy Butler, and that was a one-off.
That was a one, but it's amazing some of these things that happen because I thought Boston was going to roll to the final. And then what about the Knicks? I mean, they're a number 2 seed. When's the last time the Knicks have been seeded that high in the playoffs?
But they've earned it. I mean, they made all these trades, all these transactions. Jalen Brunson is just a great player. And they got a big man that nobody pays any attention to. He's been hurt for a chunk of the year. Now he's playing again. Mitchell Robinson. And they're doing this without Julius Randle, their leading scorer, who had the shoulder surgery. So, and Tom Thibodeau has got those dudes playing defense now. Can they go beyond the second round? That remains to be seen. So playoffs are kind of unique. So I'm just going to be fascinated going forward. But my whole focus is on, can the Clippers with Kawhi back get into the second round and hope there's no flare up with the knee? And somebody step forward and help AD and LeBron James here. Because boy, those guys, the rest of that roster is just schizo.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I agree. And how about the Suns? I mean, they got Durant, and they're still kind of meh.
Well, they're hurting. Durant is there, but their guards, Devin Booker's been hurt. Brad Beal's been chronically hurt. The 2 guards, who are the firepower guys beside Kevin Durant, have really let them down. I think they're shooting between them 41% through the first 2 games of the playoffs. So this is on Booker and the health of Brad Beal, and it's just never happened there this year.
It's unbelievable how I can ask you just any question and you've got the data right there.
I know everything about everything. I apologize. Like it? Great. Don't like it? Tough crap.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, let's go. Last topic on the table. Here we go. Roll this out.
All right, here's a high-speed sports wire.
Blake Snell, Giants, on the disabled list. 3 starts, ERA 11.37. At least he's consistent. He's got guys on base every inning. Pitches from the stretch the minute he leaves the breakfast table. He's just not wired in. It proves a point, though, because you got Snell. Jordan Montgomery's had not had the good start. Cody Bellinger has now fractured a rib. He's gone. JD Martinez has never played for the Mets. He's got a back issue, damaged goods when he got there. And what do they all have in common? They're represented by Scott Boras. And it proves that the topic, you need to be in spring training. Snell and Montgomery were not part of a team in spring training because Boras held them out trying to find a mega contract. So there's a lot of baseball to be played, but you can find the Giants near last place in the National League West because the Snell acquisition has not panned out. Auto racing, looking for auto racing fan to join us. Boy, this is an ugly story. IndyCar has stripped Roger Penske of victory points, winning money, and sanctioned his team. They took the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg victory away from Penske's lead driver, Joseph Newgarden, who won it running away. Investigation found they rigged the electronics in Newgarden's car. They have this thing on the steering wheel called push to pass. You can use it a couple of times. You use it in traffic to make a pass. It gives you an extra burst. They changed the electronics in the car. Newgarden's car and the third place finisher on that team also had the same thing, push to pass. They were using push to pass on restarts, and you can't do it. And evidently through all the technology they have, they discovered this. So they stripped them of the points. And Roger Penske is the most influential man who saved IndyCar racing. Not only legendary team, he owns all these different tracks, including a speedway. So he was furious. And I don't know if they're going to fire people from those teams or not for doing this. We talked about the other IndyCar name, Michael Andretti. He had applied months and months ago for a charter to have a U.S.-based Formula One team. F1's 10 other teams say, no, we don't want an outsider coming in that take a bigger cut of the pie. Rather than viewing this is Michael Andretti, great success in IndyCar, he'll come here to F1, he'll build a good team, maybe he'll increase the value, help us with the marketing we're trying to do in the States. Anyhow, Michael Andretti's approach didn't work. They offered $250 million to join the grid in Formula One, and the F1 owners turned him down. Michael Andretti just announced they are building factories in Sandstone, England, which is the home of the great old English racetrack.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to develop their cars there. They've started to build, and they're going to build the Cadillac engines there, and they're going to build a chassis there. And he says, I'm going to come back in 2026, and I'm going to show you what I have. Now, F1 said, can't come back till 2028. It's just utterly ridiculous, this, quote, ugly American, anti-American feel. So keep an eye on that Michael Andretti story if you like auto racing. Golf, Jon Rahm, who took all the money to go to LIV in Saudi Arabia, and now is, he hasn't won very much on the tour there, and nobody's watching the TV events back here in the States. Jon Rahm went public, and he told Greg Norman, let's go from 54 holes. Let's go to 72 holes. Let's make this golf that everybody recognizes. And Jon Rahm also said, let's reconfigure when we play team competition versus medal play, as they always play here in the States. And once we get those two things put together, go back to the negotiating table and let's get this merger done. Rory McIlroy was just asked by the PGA's commissioner to rejoin the Tour Policy Board, which is made up of PGA executives and a certain group of PGA player members. They think McIlroy carries great clout at the negotiating table to sit across from the LIV representatives, including Greg Norman, and say, let's get this done. This is what I think we should do, etc. He's got a lot of common sense. So those are names in the news. And despite the fact your Giants are in trouble and they spent a lot of money on Blake Snell, and Blake Snell's on the disabled list, John Riley, the table is yours to comment on those names.
Yeah, you kind of feel bad for Blake Snell, right? I mean, that was such a, an opportunity for him, but he starts slow and he wasn't in spring training and it's screwed. And he's not going to be in a good spot next year. Giants are going to pick up the deal for year 2.
Yeah, but that's Snell's option to walk away.
It's not Snell's option.
It's not the Giants' option.
So he might be all right, but the Giants are pissed. They're in a bad spot.
And you don't recover from oblique injuries by next Tuesday. That's a problem. I mean, if they shut him down for 3 to 4 weeks and then he's got to get himself back into rhythm, that's another 2 weeks at least. And you hope there's not a setback in the oblique situation. It's tough. It goes back to the point you need to be in spring training and ramp up collectively with all the other pitchers on the staff.
Well, just think, if you were healthy, you get 30 starts a year, right? So he's going to probably only get half of that.
Yeah.
15 starts to make 30 million. That's $2 million a night. It's good money.
It's $2 million a night to put a lot of men on base and pitch out of the stretch.
Yeah, that's right. So the other names here that I think that are worth commenting on, I mean, Penske, that's interesting. Was it a deliberate breaking of the rules, or did he think he was innovating within the scope of the rules?
No, it wasn't Penske that was doing it. It was the people that run the team of Joseph Newgarden. Penske had no knowledge this junk was happening. This was happening below him in the garage, in the pits, where they thought they had a way to manipulate the push-to-pass mechanisms, the electronics, and they got caught.
It reminds me of Jim Rome. If you ain't cheating, you aren't trying. So, the Andretti thing, you got to think in terms of make the pie bigger. Not like, they're going to take a slice of the pie and we're going to have less. That's zero-sum mentality.
Especially if they're trying to Americanize the sport here. By the time we get 2 years from now, I think we're going to have 5 F1 events here in the States.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you not want Andretti to be part of that flag-carrying group that shows up on the grid?
Exactly. I mean, if they do it right, everyone makes more money, right? And the fans show up more, and there's more money on the table. So this is very short-sighted, in my opinion. Jon Rahm sounds like a smart proposal to kind of get some alignment there. I like that. And McIlroy, he's a pretty reputable dude. PGA needs to solve this problem. It's killing the sport.
Oh, the TV issues are choking them, both LIV and PGA. Outside of the Masters, the PGA numbers are down by more than 30% for all their other tournaments. And LIV, do you know where they're playing? No. You're going to watch them?
No.
They're playing in freaking Ecuador or something this weekend. It's absolutely been, I think, terribly detrimental to golf. Hey, our podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego to serve you. You got projects? Go to them. For materials, go to them. Consult, use their ideas. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido, we will all need help with our eyes. Somewhere down road, these are the people to do business with: North County Eye Center, Poway, and Escondido. John, time for Fans Forum. I think we could go from now till Saturday morning. We got so many people that are stacked up here who got questions. I'll guarantee you this, pal, We got answers. Go ahead, John. Take it over.
All right, here we go. I mean, there's a lot going on because it's draft day, but this is Sean. He says, who are the Vikings going to get with the first pick?
If J.J. McCarthy is there and if they can get to number 4, I think it's J.J. McCarthy. I've been told the trades will happen as the picks come up. If there is an Arizona deal at 4, it'll be announced just before Arizona chooses, and then based on which quarterbacks are on the board. If Minnesota gets to 4, I don't think it's a lose situation, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or if the big quarterback Drake May from North Carolina somehow drops to 4. The top 4 quarterbacks, they're all going to get a unique opportunity to play.
Was there any way that the Vikings could have re-signed Kirk Cousins?
He was asking mega money, and he'd already made. I'll tell you, he's a profiteer. He's a pretty good quarterback, hasn't won bleep in terms of the playoffs. He's always had big contracts, and he went and got a huge contract from Atlanta. There's a big investigation. Atlanta tampered with him before the window opened, but the league is not ready to discipline those guys. The rumor is that they may lose a high draft pick for this contact that was made outside the window with Kirk Cousins, because they made calls and then Cousins made calls back. So Cousins, now he won't get penalized, but the Falcons, maybe they lose a 2nd-round draft pick with that, which to me is a significant penalty. So not in Minnesota, they had to sign Danielle Hunter, the defensive end, and he left. He went to Houston, and Cousins wound up vacating. And last year they got rid of their big running back, Dalvin Cook. So Minnesota's gone through a lot of salary cap hell, so they're going to have retrenching, retooling. So we'll see if Arizona trades out, if Minnesota winds up with the 4th pick, and which QB they get.
Bring back Fran Tarkenton. Remember that guy?
Or Tommy Kramer.
Yeah, there you go. One thing I love about the Vikings when the teams play in Minnesota is how they use that Viking horn. Whenever something really good happens for the Vikings, I think that's fantastic.
They play indoors. My God, that noise from that horn ricochets off those cement walls.
Okay, let's move around. Let's go here to Willie. He goes, has Harbaugh hired Connor Stallings as assistant coach in charge of scouting?
No, not yet. You can't cheat in the NFL, so I don't think Connor's going to get a job with the Bolts. It is interesting as we go towards draft day coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, the fact that Joe Ortiz publicly announced, I make the draft pick. Now, granted, there's give and take, and the coach has input, but I make the draft pick. And then the follow-up question on his Zoom call last week, his pre-draft Zoom call, was, would you allow Harbaugh to take Michigan players? And Ortiz thought about it, and he said, they were 13-0. They were the national champions. Why would I not want a Michigan man on my roster? So I think if Chris Jenkins is there in the 2nd round, I think the Bolts pick that defensive tackle, big wide body. But Jenkins has made some late visits. I think he might have moved himself into the backstage of the 1st round, so he might not be there. But there's 2 linebackers there. There's the running back Blake Corum. So I do think there'll be a Michigan man or 2 that'll get taken after the 1st round.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, bring some of your boys in. But who's this guy, Connor Stallings? I never heard of him.
That's the guy that was involved with the Michigan scouting thing that got him in all kinds of hot water. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The guy was videotaping. He wasn't shooting college campuses and old buildings. He was shooting opposing coaches doing all the signs.
Okay. I remember that story. I didn't remember the name.
We move on.
Okay. Let's go to Joe. Hey, popped in the eye or what, Lee?
And now listen, full disclosure, I did not get in a fight. But if I had gotten in a fight, the Raider fan would still be in the hospital. Now, I had a retina procedure. It's fine. I look bruised. I got what my kid calls it. My kid's a hockey player. He says, Dad, you look like a defenseman in the NHL playoffs. That's right. But no, if I had hit the guy'd still be in ICU.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll say this. The swelling has gone down and the discoloration has gotten a little better. So you're on the way to being healthy.
Can I get a medal? I've been playing hurt for weeks.
Yeah, you have.
Doing this podcast. You would never know it, because we're pretty good at what we do. Thank you for asking, though.
Yeah, Lee plays hurt. Let's go to Willie. He goes, why would Arizona trade a pick to move down? Doesn't make any sense for Arizona in any way. They can trade with Minnesota, then trade up with the Bears or Falcons. Your bias towards the Chargers is showing.
No, not really. Minnesota needs help lots of places. If you could solve all your problems just with the 4th pick, if it were just Marvin Harrison, you'd okay. But if you can get 11 and 23 and then maybe something else, now you got 2 number 1s in a really deep draft. So you help Kyler Murray in lots of areas. And by the way, there's a salary cap item that's attached to this, because the higher you draft, the more that 1st round pick gets. The later in the round you draft, it's a smaller amount of money, John.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting multiples of number one picks, if you get 11 and 23, and then you get a fourth as part of the deal, that's 3 more assets you don't have at smaller prices, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the Arizona should trade down because they supposedly already have a quarterback, right? And everyone wants to move up for a quarterback. So I would, if I'm Arizona, maybe move down to 5 or 6. That makes a lot of sense. They shouldn't move like down to 21 or something like that.
Well, that's this rumor about Arizona Chargers. Arizona gives the Bolts number 4. Arizona winds up 5. Then the Bolts take the 4th pick, and they trade that to Minnesota for 11, 23 and something else. Or they trade it to Denver, or they trade it to the Raiders for a volume of picks. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I think this whole draft starts with the 4th pick when we see what Arizona does.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a great day in a few hours.
I love the first round of the NFL draft.
All right, let's keep moving, and we'll go here to Chris. And he goes, as the brief yet legendary voice of the USC Trojans yelling touchdown USC from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, I want your opinion of Reggie Bush's Heisman being returned. I want it because you are bleeping brilliant, damn it, and would like to hear the agitator in left field's 2 cents as well. Sound off.
Well, I've already expressed my opinion that was a great player. Greatest USC running back, considering the tradition of running backs from Charles White to O.J. Simpson and all these other guys. And I think he's the greatest running back in high school history in San Diego, which has a history of phenomenal people, headlined by Marcus Allen. But that being said, he never cooperated. He never showed remorse. They took $300,000. They knew the rules. I totally disagree with the sales pitch. Well, the rules have changed in 2024, so therefore I should have been allowed in 2004 to take money. No. Nobody at Purdue, Ohio State, or Washington was doing that. That's a big issue. I respect the player. I don't respect the person. You can't stand there and say, this is my Heisman. He did earn the Heisman. Maybe the Heisman should not have been taken away, but he did wrong. And in fact, he never apologized nor addressed what he did. And there's not a Trojan fan out there, John, that can tell me this program is equal now to what it was in the Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush era.
Well, we thought USC was going to be great this past year, and they ended up choking. But didn't Reggie Bush's parents were the ones that benefited from all this, not Reggie Bush himself?
Well, we think Reggie Bush got money. There are documentation of credit card charges made in Las Vegas on hotels with Reggie Bush there. I mean, he got benefits. Family got benefits. The rules were the rules, even though you don't.
The rules have changed.
You can't retrofit what he did, because it's different in 2024 than it was in 2004. You obviously disagree with me. That's okay.
I want to know more about when you were in the booth calling the USC Trojans games. Did you bring all the Hacksaw shtick into the booth with you? Like, was it touchdown USC?
I worked with a really great color analyst, good friend, quarterback Paul McDonald, who's a star and really cool guy. And yes, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, up and down the West Coast, this is USC Trojans football.
Right on.
No, unfortunately, I did them for 3 years. The post-great era. I did them
after Bush.
Yeah. Oh, no, I did it before Bush.
Okay. Oh.
I did it in the Paul Hackett era. And that was kind of a rebuild, and it didn't work out very well. And then Pete Carroll came on board, and boom, look what happened.
Yeah. Good days, man. I mean, you've been around, man. Your career is unbelievable.
If you do it long enough, you should get good enough at it.
Yeah, you should. Okay. So, yeah. Eki says, hey, Hacksaw, been sparring?
Yes, I walked into one. Thank you. No, I did not walk into one.
I was telling Lee that I posted on social media that you and Coach Quintero got into a fight with the Giles brothers at Granite Hills High School in El Cajon. Okay, let's go to John here. And he says, NIL is going to put a knife in the back of college sports. The revenues that football and basketball bring fund the other non-revenue sports. I guess the value of a free education isn't worth much.
I'm just offended by the whole bloody thing. I'm offended by the amount of money that's being paid to athletes that I don't think are superstars. I think granted, the athlete does have a right. They have a right to the education. I don't know how many of these athletes are getting their education rather than walking around like this. I'm just really bothered by the lack of loyalty of the coaches that you went to work for, who helped develop you into what you are. This guy says, hey, run out in the street. I'm a star guard. What are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
I can't subscribe to that. I do think this whole thing has been, I think, terrible for the overall big picture of college athletics. I can't forgive USC, UCLA for what they did that led the dominoes to fall, that destroyed the Pac-12 conference. And I do think that the NCAA is going to find a way to get this under control. It's not going to happen a week from Monday, but I do believe that there will be changes in the operation of the transfer portal, and there will be changes, obviously, in the NIL structure. It's interesting. There was a report today. The commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey, was responding to the rumor that's out there of a super conference in which there's going to be 80 teams. He says that's never going to happen. He says college football is making enormous amounts of money, funding a lot of programs through our TV contracts. We are now headed towards the 12-team playoff, which we think is going to be successful. He says, we're not going to change this again. We'll have to wait and see whether or not something else radical happens. I would have never thought we'd be looking, after all the teams jumped, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? I never would have thought that we had a conference fold. Now we're sitting here looking at the Atlantic Coast Conference where Florida State and Clemson are suing to get out of the contracts they signed about TV revenue sharing. What happens to the ACC if the Seminoles and the Tigers vacate? I don't know where the hell they're going to go. I don't know if there's enough room in the SEC. This is so complicated. To me, it's a terrible turnoff. I'm tired of the money issue.
Pac-12 screwed themselves, didn't they? I mean, with their
USC, UCLA screwed themselves, and the Pac-12 didn't get a TV contract, and then suddenly Oregon and Washington said, we're not staying. Then the corner schools jumped, and they went to the Big 12. So it's terrible.
Well, you said you're offended by NIL and the money and everything. I mean, was Major League Baseball better during the Curt Flood era, or is it better now that they're free agents and they can move around?
It's better now because there's more talent and you have a chance to be competitive if ownership's willing to spend the money that they're taking in and being given in revenue sharing. Those players had a right to free agency. Did these players in college athletics, once they started to get paid, they have a right to continue all these legal cases to, quote, have free agency? These guys are moving. I mean, is there any San Diego State fan out there that's part of this podcast? Do you think it's good that 36 players have left your program since December, walking around like?
Well, imagine if you are playing junior college football, at some community college, and San Diego State recruits you, and they offer you a scholarship. Should you say, no, I need to show loyalty to my junior college?
No, you're going to leave junior college after a year or two anyhow.
Yeah.
But we're talking about kids coming in the front door. This kid from Mater Dei, McClellan, that's a running back of the future. And he was here less than 3 months, enrolled early, and now he's gone.
Well, he wants to be the running back now. So he's going to go somewhere and they'll give him that opportunity.
Okay. You could argue with me, but I think you'd be wrong. But go ahead.
Okay.
Next question.
Move on to Gary. This is a long one. Hate the owner, love the quarterback here, Hacksaw. You are and forever will be the voice of the San Diego Chargers, and all of us San Diego fans remember you fondly saying the phrase, touchdown San Diego. I like that Herbert is so calm and cool under adversity, but I think he needs to develop a bit of a Dan Fouts, Phillip Rivers attitude when his receivers drop balls that hit them right in the hands. Maybe get in their face a little and bark at them. He has the stature and his plate hurt. He has.
He has. And I think he's a great quarterback. He's an intellect. I think he's a tough guy. He's uniquely athletic at 6'6". I mean, you watch him run in the open field. Now, I don't want my quarterback running very much in the NFL, Gary, but he's just great. The problem I have when I look at this roster right now, they got holes tons of places. They got a black hole at right tackle. They obviously now have got no star wide receivers. Now, maybe Josh Palmer develops, but maybe Josh Palmer's nothing more than a third. Guyton got hurt. Guyton's not really come back to be who he was. So they've got issues. They have issues in the defensive tackle position. They still got salary cap issues. Maybe some more bloodshed next year, either Bosa or Khalil Mack. So they got a lot of work to get done. I am fascinated with Joe Ortiz. He was the assistant general manager to two really bright light guys, Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCastro. Learned a lot, helped make them a lot of decisions. Now he's making the calls in Boltville for them as to what they're going to do a couple hours from now. Stay at 5 or trade back and stockpile, which is what the Baltimore Ravens blueprint was. So looking forward to that. That being said, thank you for the compliment. We love being the voice of the Chargers. Game day was so bloody great to be involved with. And for the fans, it's great. And we went from being very bad to being very good and going to the Super Bowl, and the journey and the stories will never leave me. One of my biggest disappointments, in addition to the fact that I woke up one morning and Dean Spanos left our radio station and screwed all of us. The other disappointment is our community, for some reason in the media, has never put its arms around the team that went to the Super Bowl. The 20th anniversary passed, nothing happened. I did a big feature on TV on KUSA on the 25th anniversary because we've lost 11 of the players and I think 3 of the coaches from that team who've died at very young ages. But our community has just never put its arms around what was there. Maybe it's the aftermath and the bitterness towards Team Spanos and the first family of football's never won bleep for taking the franchise out of here. There's something missing. We do salute the Padres, and when they've gone to the World Series, there seems to be no emotional grasp from the media. Maybe it's because a whole pile of those guys weren't here when this team went to the Super Bowl because, man, that was a special window we had.
Would you do a 25th anniversary for a girlfriend that broke up with you? I mean, I think that's how a lot of San Diego fans feel about the Chargers.
But look at how many people are lined up here who want to talk NFL football and Charger football by virtue of the fans forum.
Oh, yeah.
The interest is there. And one of the hottest things I do on my website, I write a ton of NFL stuff. That's the hottest thing I have. So,
well, I think there's so many NFL fans that are still in San Diego that just love following the sport.
Yep.
But just to kind of go off on a little tangent here about the draft, and you were there back in the day when it was a one-day event. You talked about. Remember they had those helmet phones that were always like on the desk, and they actually used those, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about Mel Kiper Jr. Like, how did he suddenly appear on the scene and became an expert in the NFL draft?
He's a guy from Maryland who was a football junkie and sold himself going in the door in the early years of ESPN that, hey, I'm a draft analyst. And he was one of the first that put out the guides. And I tracked him down very early in his career, and I had him on all our draft preview shows and the old Extra 690 a lot. And then other guys developed. There was another guy, we had talked about him briefly. His name was Joel Bushbaum. Pro Football Weekly. He put out a guide. He was from Brooklyn, and he had a great reputation. But he had opinions, just like Mel has opinions. And, he's since passed away. And then Dan Shanka developed Our Lads Draft Guide, which is the one that I use right now. It's a big, thick book that year-round publications and put out newsletters and everything. So there have been all these different guys. And of course, all the websites now, they got NFL beat writers that are doing their own mock drafts, et cetera. So
right.
The thing, it's just a cottage industry. Is that the correct term?
Yeah.
It's just kind of exploded, which is really cool. It's different. But, we did it when it was very small. I did 9 hours draft day from the stadium, and Kiper and Mortensen and John Clayton we're all close friends kind of. And those were my insiders, and we were one of the first ones that did that kind of stuff. Now everybody tries to do what we kind of pioneered. So it was cool.
Well, I remember when you did the show, at Qualcomm back in the day, you had prepackaged audio files of featuring certain players, which you see ESPN do that. But I was like, wow, good for you guys at 690 pulling that off.
Yeah, we took one of our sports producers and we let him voice it. He'd do a 15 or 20 second vignette about this left tackle. And we'd do 35 of them, and figuring that these will all be the guys who are going to get drafted. And Joe Totino, who became Jim Rome's producer, Joe's the one that voiced all that stuff.
Nice.
This quarterback from Purdue threw for 2,800 yards and 26 touchdowns and is projected to be strictly a pocket passer. And so we did all those little vignettes too a lot.
That's good.
I'm glad to remember that stuff.
You're a content creator, right? Yeah. Hey, Bulldog, Joe Totino.
Okay, next question.
Moving on. Okay, let's go here to Body by Billy. And he says, do the Chargers stay the course for the 5th pick and draft Harrison Jr. or Neighbors?
It seems to me, based on the insiders that I've been banging around with the last couple of days, that the two guys, if they stay at 5, will either be the Notre Dame tackle, Joe Alt, or will be Marvin Harrison Jr. Neighbors is a really fast guy, but I don't think he's Harrison in terms of experience. He's a blazer. There's some other things to his game that probably, will evolve, etc. That's if they stay at 5. But knowing who Joe Ortiz is and what he did in combo with the GMs of the Baltimore Ravens, they always trade back. So this is such a bonanza of great offensive talent. I could see them going back, and maybe it's going back to 11 and 23 in the Minnesota picks if Minnesota can get access to the right quarterback, or maybe the Chargers have to make the trade up one slot with Arizona to guarantee Minnesota that you're going to get a quarterback. So again, 5 o'clock hour. These are when these trades I think are going to be announced.
if the Chargers draft a wide receiver, is that are they saying something about Quentin Johnson that maybe he isn't what we thought he was going to be?
No, he's just young and developmental. So you got Quentin Johnson. I'll guarantee you they're going to work on him about running the right routes and holding onto the football. But he, for as much as he was open, he didn't make as many plays. And, we had drops and we had him running wrong routes. And then you could see the frustration in Justin Herbert. So, as we sit here right now, Joshua Palmer, who I like, the kid out of Tennessee, he came back from a big injury, but Joshua Palmer's a big body guy who's shown pretty good hands and shown toughness. And you got Quentin Johnston, and you still got Jalen Guyton, who's a burner, but has had a major knee injury. And so this will be the second year back from that surgery. So they have some guys there. But if you add Marvin Harrison with the other group, that's a pretty good group of young guys who can run. And most of those guys have some size too. In fact, all those guys have size. So I'll be fascinated. But if you do that, then you're going against the phrase that your sales pitch us on. We're going to run the damn ball, and we're going to protect that quarterback, and we're going to open holes for that new running back who came from the Baltimore Ravens, Gus Edwards. But if you take the wide out, then you're not going to have the run game protection package you would had now. No doubt you can go find an offensive tackle second round, or you can still trade for people, but. So we'll see. It's going to be cool. I think 5 o'clock hour is going to be so neat to see what happens with draft pick 4, which is Arizona's, and what do they do with it?
Yeah, this is just an interesting draft because there's so many quarterbacks. So there's just all these personalities and teams that are desperate for moves.
Quarterbacks, wideouts, offensive tackles. The mass number of guys there. It's just, as I said, they're talking 22 offensive players in the first 32 picks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You've never seen that much.
Yeah. It's usually all these defensive linemen and linebackers that get picked. But what do you think about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Do you think he'll turn out to be a better pro than his father?
His father was really good. His father did not come in with the kind of credentials he wound up with. His dad, that might be a Hall of Fame type guy. Only concern I have is he displayed diva tendencies this year. I'm not working out at the combine. I'm not going to meet with anybody at the combine. Go look at my video if you're at the combine. And he didn't do anything in the pro day either at Ohio State, really, to speak of. So I don't know. It's something about wide receivers. They're all divas. They're all, here I am, glitter.
Well, they're not like Fred Biletnikoff back in the day, right?
Exactly.
He was a tough guy.
Next question.
Okay. Well, actually, I want to throw this other one in from this is from Brown Al Bundy. He goes, Hacksaw, take off that Spanos hoodie.
No, it's Charger hoodie because I'm a Justin Herbert fan. I was a longtime voice of the Chargers, and I love the lightning bolt. I don't like the owner. I do like the quarterback. For those of you just joining us, let's be truthful here. I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0, and I hope Dean Spanos goes 0-17. And I know there's counseling I can get for that equation. Go ahead, John. Next question.
Okay, here we go. Let's go to Steve, and he says, Hacksaw, how about those Kings last night? What a win. Vegas looks hot, too. Wow, they are dialed in. Love the Cup playoffs.
Oh, Stanley Cup has just been wild. I mean, that's an emotional blow for Edmonton to lose that game on home ice. And the Kings came out, and Kopitar and Kempe played really well in the first half. Cam Talbot made enough stops in goal, and they wound up winning the doggone game, and to a degree getting home ice advantage back as they come back to L.A. But that is Connor McDavid, and that is Evander Kemp, and that is Draisaitl, and it is Zach Hyman, who's got 54 freaking goals for a guy that was a utility forward when he was over in Toronto. So Edmonton, they could walk into L.A. and win one there. And, and it amid some other shockers. I mean, Las Vegas goes into Dallas and beats the Stars 2 straight, which is absolutely amazing. And Boston, Toronto. I mean, the Bruins gave up home ice. Maple Leafs won game 2. Boston went into the barn in Toronto, took it right back, and they just physically just dominated them. So, I mean, the playoffs are great. It's best of 7. Toughest trophy in the world to go get.
It's like one of the guys said on a previous podcast, death, taxes, and the Maple Leafs suffering in the playoffs.
Exactly.
But when the Kings had a big lead early, and then I thought they were going to blow it like the Lakers did.
Yeah, but Edmonton, they got the firepower. They can score on any shift from any time, any place. And Connor McDavid is just so gifted. And, he had 32 goals this year and 100 assists. He used to be just a gunner, just put the puck in the net. Now he's become a distributor, and he can still hurt you because he still wheels through your defense. I saw him go through 4 LA Kings, get to the front of the net and shoot last night and almost score. So McDavid he's a once-in-a-lifetime guy, and he's so big and he's so fast.
Reminds me of Michael Jordan, right? It's like once he started dishing the ball around, then the team rose up. And when he was a one-man gang, they only went so far.
We carry on.
Carry on. Okay, here, let's go to the undrafted player. Hello, why the Chargers didn't keep wide receiver Mike Williams?
Big contract, 20 plus million. I think it was 24 million cap figure, and they had to get below the cap. The other factor, and I like Mike Williams, he's hurt a lot, has not been able to stay on the field. As hard as he plays, he gets hurt. So that's a big issue there, especially at that price tag, and especially the price tag of Keenan Allen. He should have stayed. I'm talking about Keenan Allen. They asked him to take a $4 million pay cut, give up a roster bonus he was due. Bosa did it. Khalil Mack did it. Keenan Allen, stay here. This thing is good. Great quarterback. So he said no. They offered him an extension. He said a restructured extension. He said no. So he goes to Chicago. We'll see what it's like with the rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, and with the winter weather there. It's different than playing in Southern California. But they couldn't keep them all, and I was stunned they got rid of both receivers. But Mike Williams, it was the injury factor more than it was anything else.
Yeah, I mean, he went to USC, didn't he?
No, Clemson.
Was there another Mike Williams that went to USC back in the day? Maybe I'm getting those guys confused.
Yeah, there've been a couple of Mike Williams who were wide receivers. One was in Buffalo, and
yeah. So again, Keenan Allen, you talk about loyalty. I mean, should he have stayed and taken less money? I mean, there's money on the table in Chicago, and it's going to be the hot team in the NFL this next year, at least as far as the media is concerned. Why not go?
New system.
Yeah.
It's cold. It's Chicago. That's winter. That's snow in November. Might not be able to throw the ball well, playing in bad elements. Out here, you're playing in the sun. You're playing with Justin Herbert. So he's had a great career. He's done much better than I ever thought when he came out of Cal, because he came out of Berkeley with a knee problem, and he kept getting hurt. He had some real significant injuries, spleen, etc. First group of years. He's a fine player, and he's a student of the game, etc. But so Justin Herbert's got no veteran receivers to throw to, and that's why at 5:00 tonight, wait to see what happens.
He's a Cal guy. He's a brainiac, right?
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. Okay, let's go to Willie. And he says, LA Rams need edge defensive pass rusher, offensive lineman, kicker, and power running back with fullback abilities in the draft.
Well, they got a power running back who has developed in the last year and a half. So I think they're set there. They've rebuilt their offensive line with a snap of the fingers. I mean, a year ago this time, you thought, how the hell are they going to survive the retirement of Andrew Whitworth? And they went out and they drafted Steven Avila and some other guys. And that offensive line is young, and they played well together, and they stayed on the field. They were all healthy last season. I think they're taking edge rusher. They might take the UCLA pass rusher Latu. They might take Verse out of Florida State. They might take the big defensive tackle, Murphy out of Texas, to replace Aaron Donald. And they got 11 picks, so they can do a lot of creative maneuvering with those assets to get maybe more high draft picks. I could see them make a trade to get another second rounder, or do something where they unload a bunch of back end picks and wind up with an additional third round pick. So going to be a couple of days of real interesting football to see what the Rams do, because the Rams historically under Les Snead have done a real good job with what draft picks they've had. And now they got 11 of them tonight.
Who do you think has a brighter short-term future, the Chargers or the Rams?
I would say short term, probably the Rams, because they got a stud quarterback and they got a lot of components around that quarterback. Down road, if the Chargers can keep Herbert healthy, Chargers stay free of injury, and if they can use these draft picks to get more skilled people, maybe the Chargers. But that's just picking ideas out of the sky, John, because injuries change everything in the NFL, and everybody gets hurt in the NFL. And what you have on your roster right now might not be there September 15th when the season starts, because guys get hurt in preseason games or first game of the season. You lose your quarterback, game's over. So that's where we are. It's kind of tough to project way down road. Injury factor is so significant.
Do you think LA fans are going to ever really embrace the Chargers?
Only if they're in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have been there, done that. Rams have won the NFC. Rams won the Super Bowl. Chargers have been trying to sales pitch who we are, and look at our snazzy powder blue uniforms and our logo, and they do have the quarterback, but they just continue to have either injury problems or now salary cap problems.
You want to keep going on social media?
Well, let's do a couple more. Social media. Go ahead, fire away.
Okay, let's go here and let's get okay, here's another Charger comment. He goes, let's try. This is from Jose, and he says the Chargers should stay at number 5. The draft is full of talent in all positions. Harrison or Neighbors should be the pick, then trade up from 37 to 9 to 11 and get Bowers.
Well, the only issue, though, to try to go from 37 into the first round, they're not going to get to 9, 10, or 11, Jose. You could, if you take 37 and you take your third round pick, you might be able to get into the top of the second round. That's the only way you're going to get another higher pick, but you're not going to get to the back end of the first round from the 37th position. Nobody's going to trade you the 28th pick to drop all the way down to 37 unless you're willing to give them the rest of your draft board. And I don't think you're going to see Ortiz do that.
I just love when fans come up with trade ideas, and 90% of the time they're unrealistic, but they're fun to think about and talk about.
You sit in a bar with these guys and they start talking trades, and you're playing general manager and I'm playing general manager, and we're going to wind up missing dinner at home because we're sitting there making trades.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun spending other people's money, isn't it? Okay, this is a comment about the PGA that I thought was really good. This is from Agent All-Star. He says, I've been watching Bryson DeChambeau's YouTube channel, and seeing him with Phil Mickelson and other golfers mic'd up and showing their personalities is where golf needs to go. The old boring TV format is the way of the past. Give the viewers more access. Let the players be more loose and relaxed.
Well, you won't see that in the Grand Slam events. You won't see that at Augusta. I guarantee you that. Would it be cool if they changed the structure of the broadcast a little bit? But, you can't live mic these guys. I mean, these guys are playing for a lot of money, and the guy standing on a tee is not going to sit there and talk to the TV anchor up in the tower about where am I going to hit the ball. He's laser focused on what he's got to do. What they really need to do is they need to get all the marquee names back together. I swear to you, outside of Scotty Scheffler, outside of Patrick Cantlay, outside of Xander Schauffele, who I'm kind of disappointed in because I thought he was a star and he hasn't turned the corner and gotten to the next level. Outside of those guys, do you know who any of these other people are? No. I mean, it's a problem because the LIV has strip mined all the stars from the PGA and taken them over there. So they're over there. What time is it in Ecuador right now? That's where the LIV tournament is. That's the problem. We can't watch Phil, although Phil's not playing well, but we can't watch Dustin Johnson or Koepka or John Rahm because we don't know when the tournaments are being played, and they're being played in such weirdo hours. And the whole thing, golf is in a massive, massive trouble spot right now. And they got to solve this. They got to merge this. And they got to figure out how to do it. John and I, when this thing first broke 8 months ago, a year ago, we said this could be really great if the PGA takes control of the overall tour. They hold the umbrella, and you allow LIV to create these unique tournaments in Europe, in Africa, in the Pacific Rim, and you bring all the guys together. But to do it is really hard because you've got LIV that says we want to play team play, and PGA says, nah, nobody wants that. And then LIV's got this whole issue with how we're going to market this and who's going to pay these guys who we promised these millions and millions of dollars for. And then you got the PGA players who say it's got to be medal play, and you guys have to find a way to get world ranking points so you can join us in all the Grand Slam events. And by the way, you violated your tour card, and we're not letting you back into the clubhouse unless you pay an entry fee or a penalty for what the hell you did to the PGA Tour. This is on so many layers, so many levels, so complicated.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that All-Star here gets right, Agent All-Star, is that we need to get to know these players more. We need to understand their personalities, what makes them tick, because, the sort of the robo golf guy, that's just like totally focused on the game. Good for him, but it doesn't make the sport sexy. But imagine Xander Schauffele, who we root for because he's a local guy, San Diego State kid. All the big names are gone, and you're in the PGA and like, wow, this is my opportunity that I can actually go out and really start winning.
And I thought it was, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, it's got to be killing him, knowing that this opportunity is right in front of him, and he keeps coming up a little short.
You mean on the Scotty Scheffler Invitational Tour?
Yeah, exactly.
You talk about somebody that's just taken the tour by the throat, and he's steady, and he's spectacular. There's no fluff around him. There's no fireworks around him. He's kind of cool. He's a really, really good golfer, but the rest of the field has just been decimated, and anybody can show up at the top of the leaderboard and you say, who's that?
Yeah,
Outside of
exactly.
the top 3 or 4 names that I'd mentioned.
Remember Craig Stadler when
Sure.
he golfed at Torrey Pines? I remember one time he got down on his knees and put a towel under his knees to not get his knees wet, and he got penalized for that.
Yeah, the Walrus.
The Walrus, and he was a character.
And
as
he
well.
was a persona. He really was.
Yeah, and so we just need more of that in golf,
Okay, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our NFL Draft Day pregame show, our Thursday podcast. A reminder, we are here Thursdays at 1 p.m. We're here for the Monday bonus podcast at 1. When we come back Monday, we will recap the NFL draft. We want you to subscribe, so therefore you'll get all the alerts every time we put something up on our podcast, which is all hours, any day of the week. I want you to go to my website. I write a ton. I'm not doing it because I need practice typing on my laptop. I write a ton of information. Read what I write every morning. You'll be unbelievably informed. And by the way, join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Just fill out that yellow box that's right on the homepage, and then you'll get all these unique emails. Our podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores in San Diego to serve you, and by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. We all need help with our eyes somewhere down road. Think about that name, North County Eye Center. John, take a deep breath. Get your depth charts ready. Here comes the NFL draft in a couple of hours, and we'll see you come Monday because we're going to recap who did what and why.
Well, you're going to have your draft board there. You're going to be scribbling in all who went and where and everything else. I love that.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great day. I want the Raiders to get a quarterback. That's where my focus is on today. Oh, by the way, about the Hacksaw Insiders Group, when we send out the best 15, people respond back to us and they say, wow, this is really great information. This is the best 15 minutes of my sports morning. And I put that thing together. You send me the article and I kind of format it. It's incredible what you include in there.
We are bleeping brilliant.
It's amazing.
And what he's doing is really impressive too. Hey, thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you come Monday with our draft recap show. Thanks for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.